How's it going, folks? Taylor Wachowski here. Today's tip of the day, number 3, is about different types of dog food. But the main types of food I'm going to talk about today are dry kibble, wet food, the tubed meat, and raw food. I'm just going to go over each of these categories just very quickly. Honestly, I could be here all day talking to you about them. So let's start with kibble. What is kibble? It's the dry kibble that you get from lots of bags, whether it's resealable or not. You get them from vets' offices, grocery stores, obviously pet stores. You can get it online on Amazon. They come in lots of different shapes and sizes: triangles, X's, little squares, little circles with holes in them, little bone and fishes, or fish shapes. Kibble can be all sorts of different colors. It can be brown, it can be yellow, green, orange, red, meow mix, dog chow, puppy, adult, old age, whatever. There's lots of different types of sizes and colors and shapes of dry kibble. Is it good? Is it bad? My take on it is I've done lots of research into what is in kibble, and that's what helped me to realize why I don't want to feed my dog that anymore. If you do feed kibble to your dog, just know there are different standards across the different brands out there that they hold on whether it's a good quality dry kibble or a very low quality dry kibble. Now, just to list off a few ingredients that will be in the lower quality kibble will be corn, cornmeal, corn gluten, byproduct meal of chicken or beef, vegetables in there, whether it contains grain or not. Lots of different things in there that really your dog shouldn't be eating. Dogs are carnivores and not omnivores, and they do not need grains or corn or a lot of vegetables in their diet. That is why I kind of move away from a lot of kibbles. Lower end brands will be Iams, Science Diet, Kibbles and Bits, obviously, and anything of the sort. The higher end will be Acana or Origin. Those are pretty much the only two options that I usually like to recommend because they have lots of red meat, fish, white meat, birds, real type of meat in their food. It's not just first label, the first ingredient is chicken, great. The next one is cornmeal or corn byproduct meal or corn gluten meal or whatever it is. If you look at a bag of Pedigree, the big yellow bag that you can get, pretty much a 50-pound bag for $30, I believe. You can get it at Walmart, the grocery store, Target. Any of these places that don't specialize in specific higher brands of pet food is really, really bad for your dog. Don't just take it from my word, do your own research. If you look at the first ingredient, it is ground yellow corn. And they list these things in order of weight. So the number one ingredient in Pedigree, the yellow bag, is corn. But again, to each their own. So, and the same goes for cats. A lot of the lower quality foods out there are the same exact brands. They're just made for cats. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, Science Diet, and Hill's Science Diet, that's recommended by veterinarians. A lot of people don't realize that these big companies do fund veterinarians, through their education. So of course they're going to promote this brand. They don't necessarily mean to purposely promote bad food. They just promote what they have been educated in, which is the food companies have educated them, the veterinarians, in what proper nutrition is. Oh goodness. So if I were to have a cat, which is an obligate carnivore, they need to have 70% meat in their diet and a fairly moderate fat intake and very, very little to no veggies, then I feed them Acana or Origin. I don't feed them anything with corn in it. Any byproduct meal with animals can be beaks, feet, feathers, dead roadkill on the side of the road, old chickens. Byproduct meal is horrible. Don't let any of that be in your animal's food. Okay, moving on to wet food. Wet food can be the same version of the same brands that I just listed before, but just in the wet version. This can be a little bit better for your pet because they are moist. It gives the animal more moisture versus the kibble, which is dehydrated. And so your animal, your dog or cat may gorge themselves on the kibble, and then they still don't feel full and they drink a lot of water, and then it expands in their stomach. The kibble will expand, either making them throw up, they get an upset stomach, they can have an intestinal blockage. It's just not very good for them. So if you feed your animal, kibble, maybe top it off with a bit of wet food or replace a meal with wet food. It'll be a little easier on their system because they need a lot of moisture in their diet. We shouldn't, as if we were to be eating those rice cakes or just, dry rice, something that has, dehydrated, that's been baked it's had all the moisture baked out of it, is not very healthy for us. Now, wet foods can still contain some lower quality ingredients in them, so just keep an eye out for those. Look for something that's real meat, things you can pronounce. If you're going for grain versus grain-free food, there is a hype out there saying that grain-free dog food and cat food can be harmful to animals because it causes heart issues or cardiomyopathy, which can be very true. Now, I still choose to avoid grains. If I were to feed my dog a kibble, then I would feed him something that's still free of grains. And here's why. The dogs are not getting sick because they need the grains in their system. They're becoming sick because of the vegetables and the types of lentils and things that they put inside of the food. Instead of having grains, they just replace it with more vegetables, more starches, more sugar. The dogs do not need gluten. Dogs do not need gluten, nor lots of these vegetables that are very starchy. The sweet potatoes, the green peas, lentils, all these things, dogs don't need those either. So those are what is causing more of the issue than the lack of grains. So moving on to the tubed meat and the raw meat, and there are specially prepared meals that are pre-cooked that will be in the refrigerator section or the freezer section for your pet. It's fresh pet that comes in those little plastic tubes, or they come in little baggies, and they're basically like little ground nuggets of chicken or beef. They have some vegetables in there, a little bit of carrots, peas, things like that. Those are your next best step above kibble. There's real meat in it, real veggies, you can see what's in it, and this is going to be a lot more tempting for your animal and delicious tasting for them, and actually tastes like real meat than the meat powder that's in the kibble or the wet food. If you go through the pet store, or even in some grocery stores now, they have refrigerator sections for your animals, and they have either frozen patties that are pre-made for you, or they have just refrigerated meals that are ready to feed, and those are great for your animal. Those are great for cats and dogs. And now finally leading to raw. Raw is the new hype. Everybody loves it. I switched Adonis over from kibble to raw 2 years ago, and he's never been healthier. He actually gained a bit of weight from it, which is great for me because he was always a picky eater. When it came to the kibble, he just wouldn't eat it. I would have to top it off with something, or, of course he eats anything that's not his, so he would eat kibble that's not in his own bowl. Any other dogs, he would go visit their house, eat their kibble. But if I were to get that, start buying it for him, he'd like it at first and say, no, I don't like this. So he knows what's good for him, and kibble is not. Especially the types that I tried. I tried Beneful, all those, colorful packages got me thinking, oh, this is great for my dog, when really Adonis knows what's up. So I feed him a raw diet. I used to prepare it myself, where you have to do lots of research to find out what types of meats, the meat to bone ratio, if you're going to use bone in or no bone, or just raw bones. Raw bones are totally fine for your animal to eat. Just make sure they are not cooked. When they are cooked, they are dehydrated, they splinter, they can cause them lots of issues. So that's what cuts up your animal's throat. They choke on it, it causes intestinal blockages, it can cut up their tummy, or it just sits in the stomach, the parts of the bone that are not digestible, and it creates a black sludge over the years, and it's just not good for your animal. So raw bones are totally good. Just make sure they're not weight-bearing bones, the heavy, the femurs, or anything that has a lot of, weight on them. So beef knuckles, kneecaps, chicken wings even, those are totally fine because they're soft and hollow, very soft bones. I do give Adonis chicken necks, duck necks, turkey necks, chicken wings occasionally, and he's never had any issue with it, so long as they don't just scarf it down and swallow it whole. And I used to do all my research, including all of this information telling how much he needs to eat of meat, bone, partial veggies, organs, and liver requirement. It just goes for pages and pages, lists of things that dogs can eat, that, vegetables and fruits that are safe for him, the different types of additives I need to put in there for calcium, different magnesium or manganese and things like that for him. And these would be his little meal charts for the week. So you would actually end up buying the meat, buying the bone, grinding it up, grinding it up and getting all that meat and vegetables in there for him. And I would have to fix all that up, cut up all the liver, the different organs, the kidneys, the hearts, the spleens or gizzards and all that. And it was a big mess. but it was definitely worth it. It was a lot of work, but I took the time to prep each meal, for about a month's worth or two ahead of time. We Feed Raw is a great website that I started with to get, either prepped meals that they do it for you, or that you can just buy the different meats and organs separately and do it yourself, mix that ratio yourself. You can certainly do that. Or there's also Raw Fed Canine, which is the one I currently use to have his patties just pre-made and shipped right to me. They're 9 ounces each, I believe, and he loves it. I take it out of the freezer, put it in the fridge, stays in there all day long, defrosting, have it for a meal, cut it up, good to go. I might add a little bit of other veggies in there if he needs it, maybe an egg occasionally. Top it off with some coconut oil for his coat and skin. He loves it as a good treat. And you can certainly try this out for yourself. It is just as expensive as any high quality kibble out there or other diets out there, so there's really not a huge change in diet. It's just a little bit messier and time consuming if you choose to make it yourself. If you do lots of research, find out what is safe for dogs, find out how much your dog needs. There's weight calculators for your animals. You can go online and look up what does my dog require according to their weight, how much meat and bone do they need, how to start a raw diet. And there's lots of different ways that people like to do it. Dr. Karen Becker, she's a holistic veterinarian and a veterinary nutritionist. So if you look her up on YouTube, she's a great influence, has lots of information on this, and she will tell you what a proper way to do that is to get started. So if you don't want to go that route, you think it's just too much work or too messy, then maybe try one of these other diets, maybe something that's totally frozen and raw, or something that's cooked and still frozen or refrigerated. Or if you do choose to go with the kibble, that's totally fine. Just try to look for something that has more meat products in there and fresh options versus the dehydrated things and just pretty much non-edible items or things that your dog should not be eating. So that's the tip of the day, talking about the different types of food out there between the dry kibble, the wet, the refrigerated prepared food, and the raw. To each their own. Try any or all of these out and see which your dog prefers most. Of course, that fits within your budget. If you can only afford to feed something that's a little bit lower on the list, then just do your best to maybe supplement that with other things occasionally throughout the week. Maybe throw your dog a little bit of hamburger meat or a little bit of raw chicken or something, some fish or some salmon oil or something that can just give them a little bit of a boost until maybe some point you can move to a higher quality meal for them. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you feed your dog and why, how well they like it, and until next time, stay positive.